The Honeyed Fields Part 1, Echoes of Laughter, Leanna and Frederick. Their names were as intertwined as the honeysuckle vines that climbed the weathered fence separating their families' properties. From the moment Leanna, with her sun-kissed hair and eyes the shade of a summer sky, had presented a wilting dandelion to Frederick, whose honeyed gaze made her heart flutter, their lives had been a shared adventure. Their playground was the sprawling field that stretched behind their homes, a vibrant canvas painted with wildflowers and whispering grasses. Their laughter echoed through its expanse, a symphony of childhood joy that seemed to ward off the shadows encroaching on the world beyond. They built forts of hay bales, sailed paper boats down the meandering creek, and shared secrets whispered beneath the ancient oak tree that stood sentinel at the edge of the field. Frederick was her protector, her confidant, her everything. He chased away the bullies who teased her about her freckles, he patiently taught her to ride his old bicycle, and he always knew how to make her laugh, even when her heart felt heavy. His smile, warm and genuine, was the sun in her sky. As they grew older, their shared adventures took on a different hue. The stolen kisses behind the oak tree were no longer childish games, but tentative explorations of a blossoming love. The whispered dreams beneath the starlit sky evolved from fantastical imaginings to concrete plans for a future together. Frederick promised her a cottage with a garden, children with her golden hair, and a lifetime of mornings waking up beside her. Leanna clung to these promises, weaving them into the fabric of her being. She imagined their life together in vivid detail, the scent of bread baking in the oven, the sound of Frederick's laughter filling their home, the warmth of his hand in hers as they walked through the honeyed fields, now their own. But the rumble of war drums grew louder, threatening to shatter the fragile peace of their idyllic world. The whispers in the news turned to shouts. The distant conflict became an unavoidable reality. Frederick, barely a man, felt the weight of duty pressing upon his shoulders. He knew he had to answer the call. Part 2. The Call and the Silence. Frederick stood tall and proud in his new uniform, the olive green fabric a stark contrast to the golden fields he was leaving behind. A mixture of fear and determination flickered in his honeyed eyes as he looked at Leanna. He saw the worry etched on her face, the silent plea in her sky-blue eyes. "I'll be back, Leanna," he vowed, his voice thick with emotion. "And when I do, we'll build our life together. I promise you." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, a silent promise sealed with love, and then he was gone, swallowed by the growing tide of soldiers heading towards the front lines. Frederick's enlistment was a call to adventure, a plunge into the unknown. He left the familiar comfort of his youth and stepped into the brutal reality of war, a world of mud, blood, and unimaginable horrors. Leanna's call was different. It was the silent, lonely echo of his absence. The fields, once filled with their laughter, now echoed with a deafening emptiness. The oak tree stood silent, its leaves rustling in the breeze like mournful whispers. She wrote to him every day, pouring her heart onto paper, filling the pages with stories of their village, of the flowers blooming in her garden, of her unwavering love and longing for his return. She tried to paint a picture of the life that awaited him, a beacon of hope to guide him through the darkness. Part 3. Trenches and Tears. The trenches were a labyrinth of mud and despair. Frederick huddled among his comrades, the stench of decay and fear clinging to the air like a suffocating shroud. The shelling was relentless, the ground trembling beneath their feet, the sky ablaze with explosions. He saw men die, their faces contorted in agony, their bodies torn apart by shrapnel. He witnessed horrors he could never have imagined, and he felt the weight of death settling upon his soul. The carefree boy who had chased butterflies through the honeyed fields was gone, replaced by a hardened soldier haunted by the ghosts of war. Sergeant Major Grimaldi, a grizzled veteran with eyes as cold as steel, became Frederick's reluctant mentor. Grimaldi taught him how to survive, how to kill, and how to bury the man he once was. He hammered into Frederick the importance of discipline, of loyalty, and of suppressing any emotion that could compromise his ability to fight. The first battle was a baptism of fire, a brutal initiation into the realities of war. The world he knew shattered around him in a cacophony of explosions and screams. He fought with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed, driven by adrenaline and a desperate desire to survive. His tests were daily survival. He fought alongside loyal comrades, forming bonds forged in the crucible of war. His enemies were not just the opposing soldiers, but also the relentless cold, the gnawing hunger, and the ever-present fear. Sleep was a luxury, food was scarce, and hope became a distant memory. Meanwhile, back in the village, Leanna dedicated herself to preparing for Frederick's return. She worked tirelessly at the local bakery, saving every penny she could. She found a small cottage just beyond the edge of town, right where he promised to meet her. Nestled on the edge of the fields they both loved. With her own hands, she cleaned and repaired it, painting the walls a cheerful yellow, planting a rose bush outside the door. Each nail hammered, each seed planted, was an act of faith, a tangible expression of her unwavering love. She imagined Frederick's smile when he saw the cottage, his eyes filled with the same love and joy she felt in her heart. Part 4. The Inmost Cave. The letters from Leanna became Frederick's lifeline, a fragile connection to the world he was fighting to return to. He read them over and over, memorizing every word, every detail, clinging to the hope that one day he would be back in her arms. But the war was changing him. He saw the same emptiness in the eyes of his comrades, the haunted faces that reflected his own growing despair. The constant killing, the relentless violence, was stripping away his humanity, turning him into a cold, efficient machine. The inmost cave was the slow, agonizing realization that he was losing himself. The war was a thief, stealing his soul one piece at a time. He feared that even if he survived, he would no longer be the man Leanna loved. He stopped writing back as often, ashamed of the person he was becoming, afraid of tainting her innocence with the darkness that consumed him. He didn't want her to see the monster the war had created. The final assault was Frederick's ordeal. Weeks of relentless shelling had reduced the landscape to a desolate wasteland. Food was scarce, ammunition dwindling. The enemy's numbers seemed endless. Hope had withered, replaced by a grim acceptance of their fate. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned. As the horn blared the signal for the final charge, Frederick knew this was the end. He thought of Leanna, her golden hair and sky-blue eyes, the cottage with the yellow walls, the rosebush she had planted in his name. He remembered their stolen kisses behind the oak tree, their whispered dreams beneath the starlit sky. He ran, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate longing to see her one last time. He saw the enemy soldiers charging towards him, their bayonets gleaming in the dull light. He fought with a ferocity born of despair, but it was not enough. A bayonet, cold and sharp, pierced his heart. His last thought, a shimmering image of Leanna's golden hair and sky-blue eyes, faded into darkness. The honeyed eyes, once so full of life and laughter, closed forever. There was no reward for Frederick, not in this life. His reward, if it could be called that, was the knowledge that he had fought for something he believed in, even if it cost him everything. There would be no road back for him. The Allies, after months of brutal fighting, finally broke through the enemy lines. They liberated the town, the very town where Leanna waited, her heart aching with a mixture of hope and fear. When she heard the news of victory, she didn't run cheering into the streets. The constant waiting, the gnawing anxiety, had taken its toll. The light in her eyes, once so bright, had dimmed. The news of victory brought no joy, only a profound sense of dread. Then the officer arrived with the telegram. Leanna already knew what it would say. The paper trembled in her hands as she read the words. "We regret to inform you. Killed in action. Frederick Miller." Leanna didn't scream or cry. She simply closed her eyes, and the world went silent. The honeyed fields, once vibrant with laughter and love, now seemed to mock her with their beauty. The sun set on the little cottage with the yellow walls and the budding rosebush. The house, so carefully prepared, remained empty. The scent of freshly baked bread never filled its rooms. The sound of children's laughter never echoed through its walls. Leanna, her heart irrevocably broken, lived out her days in the cottage, a shadow of the woman she once was. She tended to the rosebush, watering it with her tears, whispering Frederick's name to the wind. Her love for him remained, a quiet, unwavering flame in the darkness, the only elixir she carried, a bittersweet memory of a love lost to the ravages of war. The honeyed fields remained, a testament to a love that bloomed and withered too soon, a silent reminder of a life that could have been. The laughter was gone, replaced by the mournful whisper of the wind, a lament for a boy with honeyed eyes and a girl with a sun-kissed heart, forever lost to the echoes of war.